This video is part 2 of my 2022 King of the Hammers video series. In this video, we're packing up and leaving Park City, Utah with Paul's new race car he just completed, heading down to King of the Hammers. Well, you know what they say, it's better late than never. We arrived to Hammertown in the dark. We're driving off the highway back towards the pit area, through all the different traffic that's coming in and out of Hammertown. This place is truly crazy. There's so much going on here and so many people. It's awesome to be back. The nighttime here is wild. It's hard to believe that this place is an empty desert most of the year. All of this infrastructure that's put in out here doesn't exist most of the rest of the year, and at night really shows how far all of these campers and this whole temporary city really does spread. It's great to be back to the sights and sounds of Hammertown, race cars driving down the street, all kinds of vendor displays, big screen TV kind of showing what's going on out in the races, out in the field. This is a week-long event with different races of all different kinds of vehicles, and now we're here just one day before the big race, which is a 4400 Unlimited class event. Here's a little pit action from the 4800 race. So this is Brent Harrell in the brand new car that we were finishing up in the last video, coming in for a pit stop. He needed to change out co-drivers, so Mitchell Sweat jumps in and takes over the co-driver portion so that he can also get a little time pre-running and getting to know the course for the race tomorrow. After the 4800 class race, we got to do a little bit of pre-running with the new 4400 rear steer car. However, that was short-lived as we had to go back to the pit and check a few things out. So we ended up just working on that and getting ready for the 4400 race the next morning. The morning of the 4400 race, it's always electric in the air. There's all these big horsepower cars lined up, getting ready to race, and it's always cold. It's always cold out in the desert in the morning, and that's one thing you probably don't think about is the afternoons can be nice and warm, but overnight it gets cold, down around freezing every night. So it's always kind of a chill in the air, but listening to all these big cars line up and rumble is always one of the coolest things out there. Paul and Mitch have to line up near the back of the pack since we missed qualifying, so they're in the back of the pack lined up, just about ready to go. Not very long after the race started, we get a call on the radio that Paul had already blown a steering line out on the race course that they were working on getting fixed, and team change orders, Brett Harrell needs to come in for a rear ring and pinion. So we all jump in and try and get that thing fixed when Brett pulls up, and everybody worked together to try and get that done as quick as we could. This is Cody Addington pulling in for a pit stop right nearby where we were at, and the team change order guys were helping out. You can see the cone on the front of the car tells the driver not to take off until that cone's taken off the car. You can see the people starting to fill it up. I have to have full fire suits on top to bottom, and this is a safety thing that Ultra 4 has recently implemented. I think it's a good safety measure because fueling live running cars can be pretty dangerous. Also, look around at the people walking around the car. Anybody that's not in the flame suit can't touch the car at all. So they have to keep their hands to themselves, but they can walk around and look and see if there's anything that needs to be addressed. Common things looking for is loose hardware or any kind of like torn CV boots or anything that's obvious, tire with a kind of a puncture in the side or damage to it, or just anything in general, so they can walk around and kind of observe and see if there's anything that needs attention. One of the benefits to being in the main pit there is getting to watch the different drivers come back through the main pits on the short course. So you get to see a little bit of the action, at least in this pit, versus being out in pit 1 or remote pit 2. You don't get to see quite as much of the action out there. Our day was pretty short-lived as Paul made his desert loop past remote pit 1 and then back into remote pit 1. There was an issue with some of the hardware on the front diff and the mounting and such, so had to call it right there, but he was happy with the pace that it kept out in the desert. There's just a few things to kind of go back and clean up to get this thing to where it needs to be. After the race, it was time for everybody to relax and hang out back at the main camp. We were all excited because we were going to go down and watch Pennywise, a band that I grew up listening to, 90s era punk rock, and it was fun to get to go see them live again, especially at an event like King of the Hammers. I wish I could play their music here, however, I would get flagged for copyright and then kind of get my video locked up, so you just have to take my word for it. They still sound great after all these years. The next morning, as we're cleaning up the camp and putting everything away in the pits, I saw this helicopter come in carrying a race car and dropped it off right in front of the main pit area. I can say I've seen snowmobiles recovered a lot over the years with helicopters, but this is my first time seeing an entire race car being recovered by a helicopter. That was a pretty impressive thing to watch. I needed to get out and go do a little desert loop with my Can-Am. This thing's so much fun in the desert. It just handles the whoops and rough terrain so amazing for something that's just stock that you can buy off the shelf. I've had this Can-Am for a little while, but this is where this thing truly shines, is out in the desert, in the rough terrain, and in the whoops.
out here is pretty messed up. The axle's broken off. Man, it's a really nice Jeep. You hate to see that happen. Hopefully whoever was in it's alright.
I took my rock crawler for a little cruise around Short Bus, which is basically the qualifying course for the different classes. You can see how steep this terrain actually is when you're actually sitting in a car just trying to crawl around. Keep in mind, I'm just crawling around this and I'm not hitting it at race speed like those guys are. It really puts it into perspective what they put these cars through when they're hammering through this kind of terrain. After KOH is over, it can take as long as 6 hours to go from the main pit area all the way out to the highway, waiting in a long line of campers that barely moves. So this year, instead of just sitting in that line of campers, we decided to stay late and just go on a little desert run. We decided to all head out to the Big Rock. It was just an area we could take UTVs, rock crawlers, everything, go check it out and just kind of, I guess you could say, blow off a little steam. The Big Rock in the desert is a very interesting place. It's roughly 7 stories high, covers up to 6,000 square feet, and some say it's the largest freestanding boulder in the world. The history from there is even stranger than fiction, so if you want to look it up, there's a lot on the internet about it, and I'd suggest checking it out.
So close. Guy's taking a side route. Look! Oh, your brother made it, Zig! Dang! Oh! Nice line, Kai. Maddie, how'd you get up there? Is she gonna get near that edge, Kai? Is she near that edge? What? Oh, okay.
After it was all said and done, we still ended up having a great time out at King of the Hammers. This year might have been short, but hopefully next year we spend a whole lot more time out there pre-running and just having fun in the desert. Looking forward to it. I've got one more video from King of the Hammers. The next one we're going to be doing a little bit of night crawling. We stayed a little bit late, stayed out a little bit late, had a good time out on the trails for one more night.